So, hello, my name is Maxim. I'm Maxim Jago. I'm a filmmaker, and I teach a lot of technology stuff. So I make short films, documentaries, working towards the first feature. It's very exciting. And I'm here for Adobe to talk about very, very high resolution workflows. And we're talking about Ultra HD. And the problem we've got when we're talking about these formats is exactly the same problem that we had when we were talking about HD in the first place. And I used to give presentations to audiences just like you, and I would say, so this is HD and it plays back and it's amazing and it's really great, isn't it? And everyone would nod. And then I would say, okay, who knows what HD is? And one person would put their hand up because nobody actually knew. They just thought it sounded impressive because it's high definition. So we have this problem now with ultra high definition, exactly the same problem. Essentially, high definition should have been called higher definition because it was just more pixels than we had before. Ultra high definition is just really higher definition, so it's just a lot more pixels. But as with everything, we've got some standards that have emerged. And if you think about HD, the two standards that emerged were 720 and 1080. So 1280 pixels by 720, 1920 pixels by 1080. And those two standards have stuck, thankfully, because for a while we had about 50 HD standards, which was a bit depressing, especially if you write books like I do. Don't let me forget, by the way, I also write stuff. So I write anyone use the recent Classroom in a Book for Premiere Pro? Anyone seen that? It's like a poker game. So I write that. I'm going to give a copy away at the end of this presentation. I'm going to be asking a test question, and I record the Learn by Video course for Adobe, and I write the exam questions for it. And I just discovered I've actually recorded 1,000 video training lessons. So my friends are right. I do need to get out more often and spend more time with girls. It's a fact. So yes. So 1920 by 1080 or 1280 by 720. We're just talking about additional dots on the screen. But now we're moving to very, very high resolution, and there are some excellent reasons for that. One reason is we're starting to see bigger and bigger signage that is actually video, and we need the dots to have the image resolution when you get up close to that. We're seeing shop windows now. Down in London, if you go past the Primark on Oxford Street, whole sections of the wall are now video. It's a video display. It's quite powerful, moving stuff. Also now, of course, we're moving towards a 4K standard. And 4K is definitely in the ultra-high definition territory. And there's really two different things that I want to talk about today. One is these very high resolution files. What do we do with that many pixels, that many dots? And the other is formats. Because, for example, I shot a film very recently. I'll show you a little clip of it that is 4K RAW on the F55 Sony camera. Fantastic. Beautiful pictures. 16-bit 4K RAW. The files are redunculously big. It's just enormous. But the pictures are incredible. And what do you do with those enormous files? And what are the limitations? What are the issues? I'll talk a little bit about that as well. And it's not my phrase, it's somebody else's, but I think it's fair to say that at the moment, there is pretty much just one game in town for working with this ultra-high definition media, and that's Premiere Pro from Adobe. You can work with those high-resolution formats on other systems, and it will work. It's okay. But with Premiere Pro, you can just open it in its original format, whatever image resolution it is, and very often just play it. I'm going to show you how that works with this machine. I've got a lot of different formats, and I'm going to show you a little video trailer thing from the guys that make Annoying Orange. Have you seen Annoying Orange? So they asked me to play it. It's just 4 minutes of people gushing about how amazing Adobe is, and fair enough. It's so I'll show you that, and then I'm going to show you these formats. But before I do, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that I'm going to be showing you on a laptop. This is a pretty nice laptop, but it's nonetheless a laptop, and I'm going to be playing back 6K R3D files from the new Dragon sensor in the Red Epic camera on a laptop. We've got a lovely machine over there, fantastic Dell machine with 128 gig of RAM and 32 logical cores and a kick-ass graphics card. But if I just want to play back video, do some basic effects, and edit, I can do it with a laptop like this. In fact, the playback engine in Premiere Pro is so good, I've got a 2011 MacBook Air, because I'm too lazy to carry around a heavier laptop. It's really good. I keep thinking I've forgotten to pack it, because it's so light. So It's really good. And I can cut full res, H.264 straight off a DSLR, and do special effects on a laptop as small as that. And this is down to the quality of the playback engine. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to start off with this. If we switch over, I'm going to start off. It's just a 4-minute piece, and then I'm going to show you these workflows.
Adobe products were extremely important to me all through growing up, going to college. Now, fast forward, now we have a TV show, and Adobe is a huge part of that as well. The idea of Annoying Orange just came to me for some reason one night when I was laying in bed, and I started laughing to myself, and I couldn't get to sleep because I kept laughing about this idea of this orange telling stupid puns to this apple before he dies.
And hey, Apple!
What?
Knife! Whoa! I guess Apple forgot how this works.
First time I saw the show, I was blown away at the level of animation, the creativeness behind it, the character design.
Guilty?
There's something, you know, just purely visually, there's something so odd and attractive about about an orange that has, you know, human eyes and mouth.
Well, since the very first video of Annoying Orange was uploaded, it's gotten, like the whole series, has gotten 1.3 billion views so far. Of course, 1 billion of that is probably my mom. After the success of the web show, we decided, hey, we should make a pilot and really try and shop this around. And Cartoon Network definitely responded in the ways that we wanted to. They were very excited about it.
Kappa is our post-production services company that helps us execute the show from soup to nuts.
Annoying Orange, they needed a turnkey solution, and I think that was the main crux of what they were looking for. The show is very organic, the way it works, in terms of the decision-making and the creative.
We generally deliver 1 show a week, so it's 11 minutes of content created from scratch. It's a lot of material to put up on screen. Early on, we started the offline editing using Media Composer, but realized that in order to meet the deadlines, we just could not rely on transcoding the red files and the Photoshop files into Media Composer.
What we did is we used, Adobe Premiere, we used Adobe Story, we used Bridge, Photoshop, After Effects, pretty much the whole gamut at one time or another, the entire product line. And what really helped us out a lot was everything was cumulative. A production requires cumulative knowledge, whether it be your production guidebook or whether it be metadata, and Adobe really helps facilitate that.
So the pipeline is kind of complex. The short starts with Red Camera's live-action acquisition of mouths and full-body character of Nerval, usually shot against green screen. All that material is then loaded into Premiere along with storyboard frames and all the Photoshop layered assets that come from the art department. These assets can be incredibly complex. Sometimes we had cases where they're over 100 layers deep. So there was a really strong reason why we looked into Premiere, because to load something like that in any other app is just not practical. Because After Effects and Premiere work so well together, we don't waste time on transferring and rebuilding things from application to application.
We had literally the entire production crew, all the principals and project stakeholders were on Adobe Story, and we were using it to communicate production schedules, to communicate breakdowns of scripts, as well as to be able to revise scripts and then see how that revision in the script would affect our production schedule. And I gotta say, it was magic, honestly. It was awesome.
Using CS6 saved us a lot of time, and all that gained time is put back into the project, and you can see it on the screen as enhanced quality of the piece.
Since I've started making videos, humor has always been the #1 thing for me. I love laughing, and I love making other people laugh. There's something so raw and just cathartic about it. Your day could be just completely terrible, but if you watch something really silly and it makes you laugh, it makes you feel that much better.
Whoa, that was crazy.
I love it. Excellent. There's some very interesting things happening in the realm of IP-based TV and distribution. And one of the things that's happening is, in Los Angeles, YouTube have a studio that you can go into and shoot your stuff. And if you get enough hits, you get enough viewers, they'll just invite you in to come, and they'll lay on the kit. They're shooting with a whole bunch of 4K RED cameras, and they'll lay on the crew and the studio and the kit, and you just go in and do your thing and build up some content for YouTube. And they're capturing everything in 4K. Everything's going 4K. And there's a couple of really interesting reasons why everybody's going 4K. Apart from anything else, it's new. That's good, you know. And I read recently someone said the reason that everyone's going to 4K is because they're fed up with hearing about 3D. But I'm not fed up with hearing about 3D. I think 3D is amazing, and it's the future. And it's one of the reasons that we need 4K. Because at the moment, a lot of people are holding back from 3D because they don't like wearing the glasses. And there's no way around it. It's not particularly cool wearing those glasses. And so there's a new technology Dolby have, actually, which has what's called auto-stereoscopic. An auto-stereoscopic screen. That means no glasses. And you get good quality 3D, and you can sit in your lounge and share the 3D experience with your family, and it's probably going to hit the market. I don't know. It's there, so probably a couple of years, 2-3 years, it'll be there. But it requires a 4K image. So you need to supply the content in 4K in order to get the very wide viewing angle and the good quality 3D from this really quite groundbreaking technology. Another thing about 4K is that it turns into 2K really well. The way cameras record color information, who's heard of debayering? Right, you all need to get out more often, you especially. So when cameras record color information, what they do is they capture the number of photons. So photons hit the sensor, and they count those photons, and they convert them into, it's an algorithm, they convert it into a codec. And there's a process by which they selectively record color information. Now, it turns out that our color acuity is lousy. We've got really, really bad color acuity, which is why when people compress media, when they compress video signals, they put relatively little data into recording the color, and you can't tell unless you're a robot or an alien. And, you know, not sure about some of you, but if you're human, you can't tell. That's why MP3 works, because of a thing called psychoacoustics. If you hear two similar sounds and one's a bit quieter, you just don't hear it. So why record it? The problem is when you come to work on your media, you're missing color information. So when you shoot 4K, actually, when you shoot video, something like 1 in 4 pixels actually has color information, even if it's raw, because of the debayering process. If you shoot 4K, and then you convert that down to 2K, you've got, if you do it the right way, because you can do it the wrong way, but if you do it the right way, you've now got a full 444 color in your 2K image, which is great. So there are benefits technically if you want to achieve absolute excellence in your media. Another benefit of shooting super high resolution is that you can shoot wide. And one option is that you know, when you're framing on set, what are the things that take time, right? It's the lights, and it's the sound, getting good quality sound, and it's that fine edge detail framing of the shot. But if you know the camera position you want, because it's critical that the camera is where it is, you've got the setup, you could shoot 4K or even 6K, as I'm going to show you in a moment, shoot wide, shoot really wide, and then pan and scan around inside the image to reframe the shot. Think how much time that would save you on set. If you've got a crew of 100, with all catering and everything, waiting while your DP slightly, you know, goes in, and you have that big, especially if you're working in marketing, if you're doing commercials, you know, just take a moment to feel the pain of the people who work in commercials. But when you're working in that situation, it's very expensive on set. Wouldn't it be great if you could just shoot wide and have full quality? Now, the only way you can do that is if you're working with an editing system that works with your original media in its original form and scales at the point of playback, which is exactly what Premiere Pro does. It's fantastic. So here is Premiere Pro, and I've got a bunch of different media formats here. I'm sorry if it's a bit small at the back, but I'm guessing some of you at the back are robots, and you'll have the telescopic vision implant. So here's my Premiere Pro project, and here's how it works with Premiere Pro. I was going to say earlier that as a technologist, I genuinely know how to build computers. I actually know how the internet works. I used to give technical support on the internet for Microsoft. It's bonkers that it works at all, but it does. I know how all of that technology works, and it's my job to teach people how it works. As a filmmaker, I find it amazingly boring. As a filmmaker, all I want to do is tell stories and change the world and compel people and move them. I want to change people. And what I don't want to have to do is think about menus and options and codecs and compression algorithms. Thank you very much. So here's how it works in Premiere Pro. You just tell your story. And it doesn't matter what video format you're using. It doesn't matter what camera you shot on. It doesn't matter what resolution. You just get the pictures in and cut them and tell the story with them raw, native, in the original form. So here, I've got, let's have a look. I've got a bunch of media here. This is the Blackmagic Cinema camera. This media is 2400 by 1350 pixels. Here it is in Premiere Pro. Now I'm going to try this out. I haven't tried it on this machine yet, so let's have a go. This is BMC media, and I'm going to start full res and just play back. Oh, now, if your eyesight's really amazing, I want to know who your optician is, but if your eyesight's really amazing, you see this little green dot at the bottom of my monitor. That green dot is telling me if I'm dropping frames. So as long as the dot stays green, I'm not dropping frames. If it turns amber, then I am, and you can hover the mouse over it, and it'll tell you how many frames you dropped. Just for the record, dropping frames during playback inside Premiere Pro has absolutely no effect, no impact whatsoever on your output. It only impacts your perception of the media as an editor, which may or may not matter to you. It may or may not be important. But just so you know, it's fine, unless you're playing out to tape, which you can do really well with Premiere Pro because it's got great transport controls. I don't know if you, how many of you are using the latest version of Premiere Pro? Give me a show of hands here. Quite a few. Excellent. All right. Who's using an older version of Premiere Pro? All right. Media Composer? Cool. Edius. Who's using Edius? Edius, Grass Valley Edius? Right. It's good. Very popular for news. Vegas? Oh, I've missed FCP, haven't I? FCP 7. 7. Okay. FCP X. All right. That's the yoga part of my presentation. So if you were breathing correctly, you know, your prana should be rising now. I hope you can feel that. So this is the latest version of Premiere Pro. I'm going to press play at full res, and absolutely fine, no problem at all. So now let's take a look at this. This is XAVC from the Sony f55 camera. This is, let's have a look. So this is 4K. Let's have a look. Again, I'll go full res. This is XAVC, so it's pretty hard to play back. You see that the dot's gone yellow there. It's gone amber. And if I stop playback, I can see, yeah, that dropped a frame. I'm quite impressed by that, actually. So let's try again. Yep. It is failing, but it's actually playing back okay for my eyes. Now, if I switch this to half res, I think this is probably going to play okay. And I'll just go full screen with this so you can see. So now I'm playing back at half res. Yeah, still dropped a frame. Could be the compression, actually, though. The XAVC is a long GOP media. But I think that's pretty much okay. So let's have a look now as well. I'll come back to the red because I think it's super cool. Here's C300 media. Canon C300. I feel like the price is right. So this is just 1080, but if again, I should be able to play this full res. No problem. This is MXF wrapped media from the C300. No problem at all. Now, what else have we got here? This is great. This is 4K RAW. I'm going to have to drop this to quarter res, I'm sure. This is 4K RAW from a film I just directed. It's just a pull focus, but this is 16-bit 4K RAW straight from the Sony f55 camera. Did I mention I'm doing this on a laptop? Now, the thing about RAW files is that they're not pulling their punches in terms of data storage. So let's just divide our media into two categories just for simplicity's sake, and because I'm a simple bear and counting beyond 2, you know. So we've got, what should we call them? Regular media files. Codecs like ProRes, DNX HD. The Canopus HQ is very good. You can compress. By the way, a lot of people, if you're working in motion graphics, if you're distributing your media as a QuickTime wrapped animation codec, you know, you do Animation Plus, you get the alpha, you get a massive file, but it's uncompressed really. The animation codec is uncompressed. Try using PNG as a wrapper, wrapped in a QuickTime movie. PNG files, it's an image sequence, but you can use PNG as the codec, and it's massively smaller and the quality is fantastic and it still supports alpha. have a go, try it. It's actually a very good alternative to using the animation codec as an intermediary. But when we're working with those formats, codec stands for compressor decompressor, and the point of a codec is to reduce the file size. When we're working with raw file types, what we're getting is effectively the photon count. When the photons hit the chip in the camera, it counts them. And before it goes through the process of interpreting and analyzing and compressing and pacing, you know, some cameras, they place a bit more emphasis on the blue, some a little bit more on the green. You know, there's different trends, and you can always change it in post. But if you have a raw file, you can change the interpretation of that media. I feel like I'm giving you guys all the attention. Hi. So you can change all of that interpretation at the very first stage before it gets into already being written into a file, into a codec. Now, that means big files, and it means quite hard work for playback. But it also means that if you change your mind about that interpretation, it has no impact on playback performance. So here, for example, we've got a limited support for that with the 4K RAW. I can go in and I can choose source settings for this media. I'm sorry it's a bit dinky, but I can toggle between Rec 709, which is the standard ITUC color standard for HD, or I can choose S-Log2, which is the raw original color on this camera. Now, if you're shooting raw, what you get is something a bit like that, which looks rubbish. Again, if you're working on commercials, good luck on set showing that to your client, because they're going to say, do you think maybe we could have a bit more color? What's happening is you're getting a massive amount of detail in the highlights and the shadows that you can pull back in, which is wonderful. You shoot something and the clouds are all burned out, you can just smile quietly and know that in post-production you can pull that detail very often back in and rebuild the composition. I did it for this film, in fact. So that's 4K RAW from the F55. If I switch over now, this is what I'm really excited about. This content is 6K RAW from the Red Epic with the new Dragon sensor. I'm playing it on it's quite a nice laptop. I think this one, it's the new Haswell i7 CPU quad-core. It's got a solid-state internal drive, and so it's 8 logical cores, and no, that isn't the interface I wanted. It's can I get it up? No, it's the wrong OS. It's got 8 logical cores, and I think this one's got 16 gig of memory. I'll just check that because I want to make sure you know what I'm working with here. No, 8 gig, just 8 gig. How ridiculous. So it's a 2.2 gig Haswell CPU, 4 cores, and it's got 8 gig of RAM. I would personally go for 16 at least. As I say, the machine we have over on the Adobe stand is 128 gig of memory. It's very nice. Won't fit in my pocket, but it's really nice. So I'm going to set this down to quarter res, and I think this is going to play okay. I've been using a keyboard shortcut to make panels go big and small. You press it's actually called the grave key, which toggles any panel in Premiere Pro full screen. But there's another version of that. If I press Control and that key, it goes truly full screen, except connected to this display system, it seems to be deciding that that should be mostly full screen. I don't know why. So let's go back. Let's go this way. So here is 6K R3D playing natively. The green dot stays green. Although there we go, we've dropped a frame. That's the buffering on the internal drive filling up. I think if we had 16 gig of memory, this would probably play okay. Quarter res. If I switch this, just by the way, just so you can get a sense of scale, that's zooming into 100% to fit. If I change this to 100% scale, you get an idea of just how much bigger the image is than we need it to be. So that's 100%, and this is back to fit. You just see the size of that wheel. It's quite impressive. So I reckon if I set this to 1/8, this is going to play absolutely fine. And this is, for me, very, very impressive. And this is possible because of the playback engine inside of Premiere Pro. Now, the good thing is, though, because this is a RAW format, let's have a look now. This is my R3D 6K. Okay. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to select all of these clips in the bin, and I'm going to right-click and I'm going to choose Source Settings. And when I do that, I get the full debayer controls from the red media. And this is great. Actually, the red support, if you're shooting with red, the red support in Premiere Pro is just unparalleled in the industry. And I sat in on a meeting some time ago with Adobe and Red talking about future planning and technology and stuff. And I discovered that this is just my opinion. This isn't the official, you know, I'm not speaking as a representative of Adobe. This is just my observation, is that the reason the support is so fantastic is that they're mates. They're actually hanging out and getting on very well as people. And Adobe as a company have this very open-handed attitude, not just to their collaborators, but also to the competition. A lot of this technology that I'm showing you in Premiere Pro, you can work with other editing systems as well if you want. You can work ProRes if you like. Work high-resolution ProRes. People are shooting, or DNX HD. If you want to collaborate with an Avid editor or an FCP editor, that's completely fine. And if you use, you know, Atomos are here, aren't they? They've got the Samurai and the Ninja, which is brilliant. But every time I walk past the booth, I feel like I need to walk like Bruce Lee. But you can capture straight into DNX or into ProRes with that. And if you want to do that, no problem. It works absolutely fine in Premiere Pro as well. The point is, when I'm making films, I hate to say this, so I need to kind of step aside. As a technologist, very interesting, you know, YUV native codecs and compression algorithms, very interesting. As a filmmaker, nope. I just want to get my pictures, put them on the timeline, cut the story in the best way I possibly can, and make movies. So if you want to mix and match, let's do it here, actually. I'll come back to this dialogue in a moment, because this is awesome. Right, I'm going to make a sequence. Check this out. This is a really nice workflow. In the bin, this is the project panel where I've got all my clips. I've got a little button at the bottom, which is the Make New button. It's a button menu. And if I click on this, I can choose to make new things like a sequence and a color mat and all that kind of stuff. And I've got lots and lots of presets. And if you know what your media is, you can manually define your preset. A lot of broadcasters do this. I work a lot with broadcasters where they want to remove all of the options except one that is called use this one. And that way, there's no danger that anybody could possibly choose the wrong setting. And when you pre-create a sequence setting in Premiere Pro, you can do things like pre-name the tracks. So you can have, you know, if you're working, Premiere Pro will support up to 32 channels of audio on a single track, and it'll output up to 32 channel audio files. So if you're distributing a multilingual version of your program, you can do that embedded in a single file. Put a map with it so people know which channel's which. You can do your M&E effectively, and you've got multilingual content. That's what Euronews, for example, a lot of broadcasters around the world are still supplying their content on maybe HD cam tape because it's got 8 channels of audio, and they can use it as a safe, stable format. I don't want to do this though because it's too much thinking. So I'm going to take this file and I'm going to drag and drop it onto the new item button, and this is going to create a sequence for me that matches my media automatically. I now don't need to think about whether I've got the right settings, the right frame rate, field order if I'm using field media, pixel aspect ratios, all that kind of stuff. Don't even have to think about it because Premiere Pro, the tool, is doing the work for me. It's worked it out on my behalf. Just to give you an idea of how massive these files are. What was it? It was a C300 was 1080, wasn't it? So if I put this on my 6K timeline, that's what HD looks like. This is great. That's what HD, full HD, looks like on a 6K timeline. So these are quite big files, aren't they? SD is like a little postage stamp thing. So I can mix and match, but in fact, while I'm here, if I right-click, I can do scale to frame size, and that will scale up. And you can see my aspect ratio is different because the red stuff is looks like 235 to me. So I can scale this up, but I wonder if I can show you this in another way. One of the reasons that people like working with the Adobe technologies is because of the integration with other applications. I'll be doing a presentation about this over on the Adobe booth. I'm doing another one at 4 o'clock, so come along and check it out. But here's an example. I'm going to turn off this scale to frame size, and I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to choose Replace with After Effects Composition. Now, After Effects is After Effects. It's, what can you call it? It's a compositor, it's a motion graphics editor. You can create virtual sets, you can create virtual cameras and lights and fly-throughs and animation and all kinds of special effects work. And the integration with Premiere Pro is just extraordinary. Now, I've just told Premiere Pro to give that clip to After Effects, and After Effects says, okay, I'll take the file, but I need to put it into a project. So let's just call this something unforgettable like memorable project. You will hopefully give your project names actual meaningful names. And now I've got a composition in After Effects that contains that clip. So far, so good. A composition in After Effects is like a sequence in Premiere Pro. It's the same kind of thing, but it's a different structure, so it has a different name. It's a stack of clips, a stack of layers rather than a series of clips. Back over in Premiere Pro, if I zoom in a little, I don't know if you're going to be able to see too clearly, but my original clip has now been replaced with an After Effects composition. So what's happened is After Effects has taken that clip, put it into a composition, taken that composition, given it back to Premiere Pro, and Premiere Pro has replaced the original media with that After Effects composition. And it's done so via the mechanism of dynamic link, which is a technology that allows me to do things like this. While I'm in After Effects, I've never tried this with this setup. So if this breaks, it's like live TV, right? And you all have to, they're filming it, so you all have to applaud as if it worked, and then we can CG it. Never mind. So there's a new effect. Let me see if I can find it here. Here we go. Detail Preserving Upscale. Snappily named. And the Detail Preserving Upscale effect was added to After Effects very, very recently. This is a new feature. And what this does is a very, very high quality scaling effect. Now, traditionally, if you're working with low resolution media, like standard def, and you're blending that in with high def, well, what you're probably going to do is set up your project as high def, and then hopefully sort of scale up a bit and hope that it looks all right. But the algorithms used for scaling in nonlinear editing systems are usually designed for performance over quality. If you work with, who was it that put the hand up for Edius? If you use Edius, you get to specify the algorithm that's going to be used for the project, but most systems don't let you do it. So here, in After Effects, I'm going to use this new detail preserving scaler to just scale this up. And I got to, you know, on my screen, this looks awesome. I think you can kind of see it on there. So I've scaled this up by 205%, which should look atrocious, shouldn't it? 200%, you can usually get away with 10 or 15, it looks all right, but 200, not so much. Now, I'm not saving, I'm not importing or exporting or convert, nothing. I'm just going to toggle back to Premiere Pro, and after a moment of reflection, absolutely nothing happens. Oh, it's conforming. Oh, there we go. Oh, I didn't scale it up enough. Hang on a minute. I've got this set to the wrong resolution. Let's do that again. Hang on. Let's scale it up some more. Right, 329%. And I've kind of cropped it as well a bit to fill the screen. So 329% scaling. And again, it's taking a moment. I don't know if you can see down here it's conforming, and that's because it's rebuilding a very large file. But this should, come on. Everyone hold hands. It should come up. Oh, it is. It's just conforming it. Here it goes. It's because it's rendering it out. So I've now taken my media, given it to After Effects, and it's updated inside of Premiere Pro. And if I go full screen with this so you can see, now I'll just for a point of comparison, so we're going from 1080 to 6K, over 300%. And if I take the same clip, which clip was that? Let's have a look. If I reveal this in the project, there we go, this clip. If I take the same clip, here it is in its original form. And in my effect controls, I'm going to scale this up the same way. So I'm going to use the regular scaler in Premiere Pro. And hopefully you will see, speak to me dynamic link, hopefully you will see that the difference in quality is staggering. And you can try this out for yourself, because if you've got Premiere Pro, if you've got the Creative Cloud, as long as you've updated, you have this. This isn't a to-be-released technology. This is a technology that's there right now. Now, I want to show you a simpler example of this, just because it kind of makes the point really well. I'm going to make a sequence. And I'm going to take all of this sequence and I'm going to throw this into After Effects in the same way. And over in After Effects now, I'm going to get a more complex composition because it's got all of those clips. And now in here, I'm going to, let's add an adjustment layer. And to this adjustment layer, I'm going to make a very, very simple color effect. Let's go for, moon shadows. That sounds dramatic. Okay, so I've now added a very visual color effect, and I can toggle back to Premiere Pro, and you can see right away that updates. Now, I was going to show you with the Red Dragon media the same sort of thing, but in reverse, in a way. If I look in my bin, I've got all my Red Dragon media, and if I select all of this, but I'll deselect that sequence, and go into my source settings, I've got all of these debayer controls. Now remember I said that with raw media, one layer of interpretation must occur for it to play back. If you've ever worked with photographic raw media, you'll have seen if you open that up in Photoshop, it opens up in Camera Raw first, because you have to say how you want to interpret the photon count that hit the sensor. And it's exactly the same with any kind of raw video media. So in here, I'm going to, I'll make this really obvious. I often do this because it's nice and clear. This is red media, so I'm going to crank up the red gamma. So you can see a gamma curve is kind of the midtones in the shot. So it's very visible. I'm going to click OK, and this will retrospectively update in my timeline. So I've effectively got preamp color correction. No impact on playback performance. If I go full screen with this, you can see that will play absolutely the same as it did before. 6K RAW on a laptop. So there's a lot of these workflows. This plaintiff, this is the child that was told no more ice cream today. So to summarize, these workflows are all about not having to think, which I'm a big fan of, because the technology is doing the thinking for you. If you've used any nonlinear editing system with snapping, where you've snapped two clips together to get a frame-accurate cut, that is the sort of technology I like. That is what I'm talking about. You know, if you almost feel it, don't you? When it snaps, it's almost like you feel it in your fingers. That's it, it's in. And you don't check it anymore, do you? Once you've used it a few times, you realize, I don't need to check because I know it'll always be right. And the goal that I think Adobe are working, I don't work for Adobe, but I think Adobe are working towards very well, is to have a set of technologies where you don't have to think because it's right, because the technology makes it right. And you don't have to worry about your formats anymore. There are lots of other workflows to connect these applications together. I'm going to be going over them in the Adobe booth. I must remember as well, I have a newsletter. I give away free training and stuff, and I've got a URL to give out a week of free access to lynda.com. I produce a lot of content for there. If you give me your card, I'll put you on the newsletter, and I'll send you a link to get a week of free access to Lynda. And also, I said I write this book, and I want to give away a copy, but we couldn't think of a good question. So what's the capital of Peru? Oh, wait, I heard it over here first. Who was it? It was you, wasn't it? You in the book. Okay, I'm out of time. I better hand over to the next speaker. Thank you very much for your time.